Hi everybody, my name is Rebecca. I'm the social media manager for HP Tuners, and we are here at Nostrum High Performance. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Jason Haynes. I'm Director of Product Validation and Vehicle Development.
I'm Sam Barrows. I'm Director of Engineering.
Grant Tillman, I'm the calibration team lead.
Awesome, and we came here today. We had a wonderful day filming some great Global B content, and we just wanted to talk a little bit about what Nostrum does. And kind of open up the discussion for what these guys do on a day-to-day basis. Do you guys want to tell us who is Nostrum High Performance and what do you guys do?
So we consider ourselves a fuel spray or a spray company, but obviously that's really allowed us to focus on fuel injectors and fuel pumps. So a fuel systems company is from an aftermarket performance standpoint. We're also in the OEM and research world, but from an aftermarket standpoint, we're really a fuel systems company, fuel injectors and fuel pumps. On fuel injectors, that's both port fuel injectors and GDI injectors.
Yep,
and on the fuel pumps,
fuel pumps,
right, and then the fuel pumps, it's GDI fuel pumps. We've dabbled in the low pressure side of things, the lift pumps, so to speak, but really our focus is on GDI pumps. And I mean, we got into GDI pumps by requirement. I mean, the reason we do GDI pumps is when you have bigger injectors, you need a bigger pump, and there weren't enough bigger pumps, so we needed a better, bigger pump.
I'm sure some of our viewers may ask, what are the difference between these pumps?
So in a traditional non-direct injected vehicle, there's just one fuel pump. It's the intake pump. With direct injection, the fuel pressures are much higher, 3,000 to 5,000 psi. So there's a second pump driven by the engine, which is a high pressure fuel pump that boosts the pressure to the pressures required to operate direct injection injectors.
And why would that be important in like a street car versus a race car?
I mean, in modern direct injection cars, typically one of the first modifications that you have to make is going to be to the fuel system. When you want more power, you need more fuel, the first step is going to be the fuel system. Especially nowadays with E85 being so readily available, that requires 35 to 40% more fuel flow. And most of the time, especially in boosted applications, your fuel system just isn't large enough to compensate for the required fuel flow to make extra power.
Yeah, I mean, why would a manufacturer design that added headroom into the system? I mean, basically their engineers did a bad job if they left enough room to make 30, 40% more power. So, when customers are modifying the vehicle to increase the horsepower or to increase to go to a different fuel that requires a different air-fuel ratio, that's different than what the OEM designed it for.
Now, there's something really interesting to be said about direct injection systems, and I think it doesn't get talked about often enough. It's something that I'm very fond of. So if you look at the evolution of fuel systems, starting off with carburation, going into throttle body fuel injection, going into port fuel injection, all of that was driven by emissions. It was because we needed tighter control of the air-fuel ratio of the operating engine in order to be able to run the engine cleaner. Direct injection marked the first time where the fuel system evolution was driven by efficiency. So as you go from carburation to throttle body injection to port fuel injection, essentially the engine efficiency can remain the same. But with direct injection, we're able to spray the fuel into the cylinder where it cools down the charge, suppressing knock, allowing us to run higher compression ratios, allowing for the engine to be more efficient. So when you talk about how is direct injection relevant to racing, direct injection is an enabler to increase performance. And the reason why I think this is interesting and important to know is because a lot of times people take the easy way out. And instead of upgrading the direct injection fuel system, they add port fuel injection. And that comes with a lot of drawbacks in terms of making the engine more prone to knocking, as well as reducing performance, because if you're trying to flow fuel through the intake port, that displaces some of the incoming air. So the highest possible performance is when you're able to meet all of your fuel demand through direct injection.
To make the long story short, when you buy your C8 and you buy HP Tuners credits and you go to tune the vehicle and you want to throw some E85 in there, you're probably not going to have enough fuel unless you upgrade the fuel system as well.
I have always been curious, how exactly do injectors work? I saw them in the production room, and we got some great footage of it today. It's really interesting to see up close, but on a bigger scale, and I guess on a smaller scale technically, how do these work in your car?
Okay, so I mean, intrinsically they're a solenoid valve. So they're an electrically operated solenoid valve. I mean, ignoring mechanical injection that was, 1950s, 60s Bosch mechanical injection. So the electronic fuel injection that we're used to, whether it's PFI or GDI, it's a coil-operated solenoid. And in our cases, all running at 12 volts battery voltage, except for on GDI, your ECU bumps that up to 65 to 70 to initially open it because of the pressures that you're operating at. But you've got a pintle and a seat, and your coil is pulling that pintle back. For most injectors, there are some others that are outwardly opening that go the other direction, and there's some piezo injectors that further complicate that. But in most cases, 90% of the cars that I think the gasoline market people, not talking diesel people, are used to dealing with, they're looking at a pintle and seat 12-volt operated solenoid valve.
To take a page from Grant's book, so simplistically, the fuel injector has two jobs. It needs to meter the fuel and it needs to atomize the fuel. So you need to be able to deliver a precise amount of fuel at the right time, at the right quantity, and break it up into the smallest possible droplets so it can burn cleanly and efficiently.
I wanted to ask you guys, so you're all on the calibration team here at Nostrum. What are some interesting things that you guys have seen tuning vehicles here?
That's
Grant
a tough.
probably has the best
That's
story.
a
Really?
tough question.
I mean, I think the C8 behind us is an interesting one just from the ethanol content and the impact of horsepower on that one. That's a nice...
For the very fact it's possible, let's start with that.
Yeah, I mean, when the C8 came out, I don't think anybody thought that Global B was going to be cracked.
I was promised it was uncracked by General Motors.
Yeah,
all my friends that work there said this is the one. This is where tuning ends.
The latest and greatest security, and look where we are.
256-bit encryption and all that.
Yeah. So yeah, that is actually a pretty interesting development. Is that the impossible was done, and it allowed us to begin product development.
Yeah, I mean, we
So-
had done some product development, but sort of set it on the side because until we knew there was software support for it, what's the point of developing a product if no one can use it?
Yeah.
And the number of people that are going to rip the ECU out and put an aftermarket ECU into their brand new C8
Sure.
and lose diagnostics, lose everything. I mean, you got at least 17
Automatic
mods.
emissions fail.
In automatic emissions fail, but even forget that, your body control module that opens your doors is expecting an ECU there. There's all kinds of things you start ripping OEM ECUs out. So if you're going after the few people that are willing to turn their nice C8 into a, not as good vehicle just to put a different aftermarket ECU in there, you're talking a really small percentage of the population. Is it worth us generating a product for that? But as soon as Global B support came out from HP tuners, now it all of a sudden justifies us, putting the investment in to develop product for
I
it.
also think it's really interesting that, in a way, we're living in the golden age of automotive performance. Today, you can pick almost any brand, and with the right modifications, you can have a 1,000 plus horsepower vehicle that starts in winter, drives normally, is civilized, is not insanely loud, and makes power safely and reliably.
Yeah, I mean, we were
This
talking
would've
about
been
that earlier. I
unthinkable
mean,
20, 30 years ago.
the ability to have a 9-second street car. I mean, yeah, there's some compromises that might be done, and you're going to want good tires on it, and, unless it's all-wheel drive. But 20 years ago or 30 years ago when I started in the aftermarket, 9-second quarter miles were not street cars.
Yeah.
That's true.
10 seconds were not street cars.
And
So I mean, it's
largely because of the computing power behind these vehicles, and then being able to access the power to do all the torque management, the traction control. It's really what makes it possible.
yeah, and fuel delivery over various RPM and load ranges, the spark control. The ability to control so much of that so much finer, so much better than what they could before is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did anything stand out to you when you were calibrating the C8?
Not aside from the fact that from the second I got in there, I had everything that I needed to get the job done. It was actually a pretty smooth process. We got the ECU back from HP tuners. We plugged in. Everything operated exactly like it always has, and we got it done.
Not
Yeah.
only that, this car has a 960 horsepower capable fuel system. Cold starts like factory, idles like factory, drives like factory. I think that's remarkable.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Probably nothing like that BMW with the RB25 you were telling me about earlier.
Oh yes, absolutely. So Rebecca was asking me what was my favorite car that we had on the dyno here so far, and I have to say
A
for
BMW
sure,
with an RB25.
it was a E30 BMW with an RB35. We had it on the dyno, and everyone was lining up to see it. So the turbocharger had a dump just shooting straight up. It made the best sounds I have heard from a car in a very long time. I know you don't get excited about dyno videos, but this car was awesome.
I mean, show me the video and we'll see how it goes. But
We have
It's
to
probably
put
on,
a clip.
it's probably on our web store or our YouTube channel or something
Yeah.
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. What else have you guys had in here? Anything else like that?
We had a Nissan GTR track car that was wide body. The
Was it
tires,
yours?
Yes.
Oh.
I may be biased. Also, I broke the front diff on
He's
the
like the
dyno.
coolest car we've ever had in here. You will not believe it.
It was.
It was mine.
Pretty cool in my defense, but anyway, the tires came out of both rollers. It was wide body. It barely fit on the dyno, and it made I think about 900 to the tires. So not the craziest GTR ever, but it was a real handful on the dyno. It had a lot of torque and it moved around a lot. And it was just really exciting to drive and tune.
It came off the rollers. How did
It was
handle
really
that?
wide, so the tires were just extending past.
They're
the
just
end of
they're just past the
rollers.
tires.
Yeah.
The tires are just past the rolls. It's,
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
Yeah,
So it was fine. There was no.
it was okay.
Okay.
It didn't fall off or anything.
So your coolest car that you've ever had happens to be mine.
No,
You know, subtle 900 horsepower R35
It
wide
wasn't the
body.
biggest power. We had a 1300 wheel horsepower car here once. That was pretty cool.
What was that?
It was a GTR as well, not mine, but GTRs are easy power.
You mean there was another one that made more power than yours?
There was. I
Oh.
tuned it. So
And you didn't
I
talk about that one first?
Yeah, well, it was a newer one. It was a little too civilized.
Ah, okay, okay, gotcha.
Oh, of course. Let's not forget Rebecca's Civic Type R is pretty sweet.
That was
on the
pretty
dyno.
sweet. Yeah.
Flex fuel support.
We had a whole 385, guys.
I think we're at
Hey.
394, 392
394.
You know what? I bet it's
Great
more
car.
exciting to drive around the circuit than the 1300 horsepower GTR.
Very
So
I don't know.
you know,
It's no GTR. What do you got?
No
that's
offense.
cool?
come
to
on,
the
man,
MPV, but,
come on.
Do you have anything cool?
I drive a Toyota Tacoma. I'm pretty boring.
What's
Yeah.
the coolest car you've ever tuned, though? I know you got good stories there.
Ooh, man. Yeah, I don't know. The Saline S7 project was pretty cool.
See?
Just like from the whole cool factor, but yeah, the 2000 horsepower sand cars were probably more fun.
I bet.
That was a good time.
You got anything cool?
quite a few. We did Jay Leno's Tornado with General Motors. So
Did you really?
Oh, I
I
remember
was in
that
charge of that
car.
project when I was at Lingenfelter's, and I did the calibration work with that. So that was with GM. So it was great having there the ability to have OEM support. So if there was operating system changes needed, to have the manufacturer make the operating system changes, that was pretty cool. Hey, I need to be able to run 2 MAFs. Okay, well, we'll have a new software set for you that has 2 mass airflow sensors. Yeah, you don't get that very much in the aftermarket. That was
Wow.
pretty cool. And I mean, we drove that car around GM's Arizona Proving Grounds, and we were doing wide open throttle testing and exhaust gas temperatures testing, and making sure that it drove well for him. So that was a fun project.
Did you get to meet him?
Yeah. He was in the vehicle when we were doing some of the testing. He came out. Yeah. So that was a cool vehicle.
He's like, yeah, I met Jay Leno.
There's some
Anyway.
really good clips of him driving that Tornado, by the way. That is
Yeah.
a cool car.
That was the cool thing with him, was just he loves driving the vehicles, and talking with the guys that run his garage for him is like, something breaks, their only job is to get him the next vehicle to drive, go pick it up and fix the vehicle that he broke, kind of thing. So that was,
I heard every car there is gassed up, maintained, ready to go.
yeah, if he chooses the next day he wants to drive something. So yeah, no, he was definitely a car guy. So that was a cool experience. And then did some standing mile Corvettes for when I was at Lingenfelter's. Those were some pretty fun vehicles. Yeah, and did the ASA program. That was a spec series running, OEM ECUs. So that was a fun program. Just
I got one more. Our Q50. So
Yeah.
we were the first people ever to do a fuel system upgrade for the Infiniti Q50, which meant that we had the world's fastest, because until we made a fuel system for it, no one could make that much power. So we entered it into this half-mile event, and this guy rolled up in a beautiful black Ferrari 458 Italia, and I lined up next to him. By pure chance, I wasn't trying to. I launched the car, it's all-wheel drive, and it just puts buses on this Ferrari. It was not even remotely close. So I finished the race, and I want to talk to the guy, and I walk up to him, and as I'm walking, he rolls the window up. And it was fantastic. And that car was just such a surprise for everyone. The one thing
He
You
was
were in a
so
Viper
angry.
at that event
it was,
too.
it was a supercharged Viper.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it would just destroy everyone off the line because it was all-wheel drive and it made good power. The only thing that wasn't flawless about that car is that we had no transmission calibration control. And I really wish that we were still doing that work today because HP Tuners now supports the transmission calibration for Infinity, so we would have been able to do an even better job if we were working on it today.
Man, I'm still thinking about that Ferrari. That guy must have been so angry.
Have you seen the video? It's sweet.
No, do you have it?
Oh, yeah. We just reposted it the other day.
I'll put it on the screen. So people
Oh,
can see
it's
it.
so good. Like right off the line, like 2 buses. It's just done. The race is over. He should have just stopped.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, he went home. He called the dealership. He's like, this
It's
one's
broken.
it's broken. You gave me the wrong one.
Yeah.
That's so funny. There was a little bit of an argument in a post that we had posted a little while back, so I wanted to ask you guys, what, in your opinion, is the best first mod that you can do to a car?
That really depends on the vehicle.
That is true. That is so true, yeah.
Um,
Let's talk sports cars in general. I know that's generic, but assume it's got decent
Are we
street
trying to sell our
tires.
products, or are we trying to be real? In most cases, it's fix the person behind the wheel to learn to drive your car better.
Driver
I mean, the
mod.
number
Oh,
of people that don't realize just how incredibly capable their cars are. You get out, and that's what I used to do as an SCCA instructor. You would go out with cars, and the number of people that didn't realize just how much throttle they could really apply, or just how much, especially brake, they could really apply. I would say that. But if we're actually trying to sell stuff, that's a different story.
I would say a tune.
Yeah.
Usually a tune is the first step.
Yeah.
And if it's not a flex fuel vehicle and you have access to flex fuel, I mean, that's a cheap way to get high octane gasoline that you can't normally get. You know, if you don't want to go run VP 109 all the time and you can just go down to the local, gas station and get E85.
You also need a tune for that.
Yeah,
Yep.
no,
Yeah.
I'm with Grant. A tune.
Yeah.
A tune is your gateway drug.
Yeah.
It's when you realize I can make a change to my car that makes it faster and better.
Yeah,
And
there's
once-
not much you can do without it.
Yes.
So
Yeah. And then once you realize
And the
that,
factory's done
then-
so much better job on the parts. I mean, it used to be 20, 30 years ago, some of the air intakes were pretty restrictive. The exhaust systems were pretty
Yep.
restrictive. I mean, on some of these newer cars, you go through a different exhaust on it, and it makes no power at all. It's just
That's
it's
true.
just the audio. So I would
Which is
say
important.
tune. Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's I mean, yeah. What tips you have on the exhaust is important if that's what you like, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying, if you're trying to actually improve the performance of the vehicle, bang for the buck.
it's an HP Tuners MPVI3.
There you go.
You said it right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Plus now you can data log, you can check codes,
Or an
Yeah.
RTD device, depending on what your tuner's using.
Yeah.
That's true. It's important to remember it's not just about tuning. Every car, no matter how reliable, will have occasional glitches, check engine lights, TPMS sensors are faulting out, and being able to scan, understand what the problem is, clear codes, is invaluable. So even for cars that aren't tuned, having a tool like the MPVI3 that can log in and be able to scan and clear codes is very valuable.
Sure.
and even if you don't want to clear them, just if you want to know what they are, so you go to the mechanic or to your dealer and say, hey, I've got DTC so and so and so, and oh, it's because you left your gas cap open. But okay, fine. It's something I think still to.
But at the end of the day, what's a tune if you're a bad driver? My answer is also driver mod.
Yeah, but you
I have
can
an answer
make up for that a
though.
little bit. You make enough horsepower, and a bad driver might be
You
able to
can be
catch
the
up to
world's
somebody.
worst driver if you want to accelerate the car. As long as you know how to push the gas pedal down, you'll be able to appreciate straight line
And you will be
performance.
the most hated person at every track day in the world because
every time.
you pass everybody on the straights, then you slow down in the turns. They have to pass you in the turn, and then you pass them on the straight. Don't be that guy.
I've lapped McLarens in my Civic. I've been lapped by many a Miata.
I can believe it.
Oh, and that meant the
spec Miata
different
guys are
track event.
hardcore.
They're
Yeah.
hardcore.
Yeah.
They're fast. You drove SCCA or instructed SCCA. You know that.
Although
Yeah.
I will say, being able to put something on the wall and only lose a couple $1,000 really does tend to make one faster.
Yeah, there is a certain, fear factor of destroying your $100,000
Yeah,
vehicle.
like,
that
I'm not-
$6,000,
Yeah.
beater.
I'm not
Okay.
driving
That's
this
true.
10-tenths, right?
Yeah.
Because I know that a collision on the track is not covered by insurance, and I just can't really deal with the repercussions.
Is it
of-
really fun at that point?
Yeah, it's still fun, but it's not like Miata 1110s bounces off the wall. It's okay kind of fun.
That's my kind of fun.
Yeah.
And even just on the street, I mean, I love the C8, and I mean, what Jim's done with that vehicle and many of the other sports cars are great, but the problem is, to try to push that vehicle close to its limits on the streets is impossible. But you get in a semi-sports car, so like an ex-girlfriend of mine had a Nissan Sentra SER.
Not a sports car.
Not a sports car, but a sporty car, and you could push that on the on ramps and off ramps. Yeah, back then the Sentra SER was considered a sporty car.
I would buy
it was
the Miata as a sports car.
Ah, for sure.
Sentra, I am sorry,
Yeah.
Jason.
the SER. That's why I said SER.
We're
Camaro?
Go look it
straying
up.
a little
Go look it up.
Camaro, the Camry, isn't
Yeah.
there like a Camry Type R or
The
GT?
Yeah, but that's just a NASCAR
TRD.
lookalike.
TRD.
Yeah, and those are cool cars.
I don't know, man.
But a Sentra makes more power than a Miata, so
Yeah, so
Oh,
the
well-
SER was used in was
So it's not
successful
all
in
about
some-
power, is
so
it?
what makes a sports car?
Uh,
The OEM
a
thing?
great chassis, a balanced chassis, a balanced package, the entire package.
I think
It's
design intent.
Yeah.
So, like,
Miatas are not curvy, so
okay,
the
so
lines on the
a
C8.
Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon makes 500 horsepower, probably more now, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, the design intent is for it to just be a comfortable off-road capable vehicle, whereas a Miata or a
somewhat
Lotus,
comfortable.
Yeah, debatable.
They
but-
were comfortable in '95, I would think.
Yeah, so I think, if you look at Miatas and like the Kia Stinger, the design intent is for it to be a sports car.
Yeah.
It's designed for fun. It's designed for driving enjoyment. It's not a rational decision to drive a two-door car, and especially something that's stiff and not loud, but it's fun. And I think that the fun is what makes a sports car what it is.
That's why all of us are in this, is for the fun part, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
otherwise,
Yeah.
why would you modify your vehicle? Why would you be doing any of this stuff? I
Exactly.
mean, we can go play golf or something like
Life's
that.
too
Yep.
short to drive stock cars.
With that being said, since we're talking about some of the craziest stuff that you've ever tuned, what's the most bizarre tuning request you've ever had? You had a really funny one earlier.
I had a good one. I had this guy, I think he broke his transmission, right? So he sends me an email and he's like, hey, Sam, I need you to tune out second gear. And I was like, well, how would you imagine this to work? And it's like, well, just make it not have second gear. I'm like, well, it's the mechanical part of your transmission. Like, I can't do that.
I mean, it's an automatic. Is it automatic?
No, it was a DCT, and it has to go through
okay.
second gear.
Okay.
I don't know. I once tuned a Baja Bug with an RY45 in it, and
That's cool.
that's pretty. I would say that is odd. The person that goes through the trouble of putting an RY45 in a Baja Bug, but it was pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
I mean, I think probably everybody is doing calibration for a living. I mean, you get the oddball requests that people want pops and bangs. They want the stuff that has nothing to do with performance.
That's so common that it's not oddball.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's not oddball.
that's
It's
not
like
oddball.
everyone under the age of 20.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the people that think that somehow we're going to miraculously pick up 50% in fuel economy or something like that, and they come to you with their lifted truck with knobby tires, and they went from a 373 to a 510 axle or something like that, and they want their fuel economy back, and it's like, I can't get you your fuel economy back through a cal. I can't push those keys to do that kind of thing.
No, just set maximum throttle position 30%. Done.
I've done that to people's cars, but not in those cases. But yeah,
You guys get a lot of calls that are just like, can you guys get me pops and bangs?
That
as
does
tuners?
that. Well, I mean, not here. We don't. But yeah, I definitely have gotten that before. It's all about the flash, the noise.
yeah.
Do it for the gram.
Yeah.
But I mean, it impacts everything. I mean, one company I worked for that became part of camshaft development. That's not unique to that company. There's other companies that make a camshaft that is not designed for peak power, but is designed because people want
Peak noise.
peak noise. They want a rough idle. They want it to seem like a hot rod, even if that is not the best way to make
Actually,
power. Kind
more
of thing.
noise is more
Ghost
power.
cam. The ghost cam.
I was gonna
tune.
say
Oh
you
my God.
you just unplug a vacuum line.
Go
Yeah.
scam.
You get that
Yeah.
chop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to
More
joke with
noise,
one of the
more
companies
power.
that makes the misfire generators for the OEM companies for testing misfire, that they ought to make an aftermarket version that just induces misfire, because that's what people sometimes seem to want.
Honestly, yeah.
I just gave somebody a plug for a product that's going to go make $1 million, and I'll
There
be
you go.
really sorry about it.
It's like giving a VVT vehicle really poor cam timing just so it makes a little
So we
rough
like
idle.
The throttle remap guys.
Don't get me started on those.
Yeah.
You just need a pedal commander.
Pedal. That's what I was thinking of. Pedal.
Did we have
commander.
to plug somebody there?
Sorry, but
I
you
have a
know,
lot of hate for that, but
me too.
yeah.
But
What are some myths in the tuning world that you feel like you could debunk?
I mean, as
Or at
a
least shed some light on.
GDI company, I think it would be bad not to mention is that people think you can make more with PFI. So there's a certain portion of the market that feels they have to just rip GDI off and put PFI on, and that's not true. And the other one is that you can't. And the other thing is that they don't think they can run GDI at high RPM. And again, that's not true. I mean, we test, and the SAE standard for testing a GDI injector is done at 100 hertz, which is 12,000 RPM. Now, that's not done for performance reasons. It's done to speed the test up so you get more pulses per second and just get the test done faster. But the injectors are perfectly capable of running at those RPMs. So now there are some limitations, obviously, on pump from a mechanical standpoint, because it is a mechanical device. But I think a lot of the limitations that people think exist in GDI just come from their lack of knowledge of GDI and lack of experience in it, kind of thing.
We've been able to show back to back you lose about 7% power as you go from DI to PFI, all conditions remaining the same. I think another one is the myth that direct injection is somehow complicated or difficult to calibrate. And I can understand that there's a lot more going on than calibrating PFI, but if you have a template and you've got good injector data, it's every bit as simple as calibrating any other vehicle.
I would disagree that it is more complicated. There are more tables you have to fill out. And that's why it's so important that we have partners like HP Tuners that get us all those tables.
This is 100%. I always thought that I never wanted to be the old guy in the shop that was still pumping carburetors. And it's kind of the same scenario with GDI and people who are attached to PFI. They don't fully understand it. They don't fully understand the capabilities. They don't fully understand the benefits, but they don't understand how to make it work. And so you end up with the scenario where people push what they know, and what they know is PFI.
Yeah.
And honestly, in some scenarios, PFI is easier. Sometimes it's cheaper. Sometimes it's more readily available, but it doesn't work better. In vehicles that are designed for GDI, GDI is the way to go if there is an option for you.
Thank you guys so much. Make sure that you check out NHP, Nostrum High Performance in Ann Arbor. Thank you guys for having us out here. We were able to touch on a lot of great tuning concepts. We're hoping to roll out more of these videos in the future, so make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.